Hi guys, it's ASBYT and this is the iPhone 13 Pro Max. I've been using it for the last few days since its unboxing, and this is my early review so far. What I like, things that I think potentially could be improved in a future product, and some comparisons to older iPhones and Android phones, etc. It's the truth so far, hope it helps. And if my voice sounds a little bit funny, I apologise. I went to a wedding a couple of days ago and I probably had a little bit too much fun, and I'm still feeling a little bit ropey. The iPhone 13 Pro Max comes in 4 colours: graphite, silver, Sierra blue and this gold version that I've got here. Now, from a design point of view, there isn't too much change. Not that we were really expecting it, to be honest. Apple only really make big changes from a physical point of view once every few years really, and they changed the look last year, so expect this chassis probably for at least another year after this one. Did I just say chassis? Yeah. The only 2 real slight adaptations this time around are the larger camera lenses on the back, more on their performance later, and the ever so slightly smaller notch on the front. This has been made possible due to the True Depth camera system that is now 20% smaller than last year's model. So the notch is now smaller, which is nice, but does it drastically affect the experience? Not really. I still think personally it would have looked far better with a hole punch front camera, but then you do have the advanced security features of face unlock that you wouldn't quite get, so swings and roundabouts, I guess, a subjective preference. The new rear camera system still resembles last year's model. I say new, they are still using 3 12-megapixel sensors, but the new telephoto camera has 3 times optical zoom from 2.5 times last year, and the main and ultra-wide angle lenses have larger apertures than before, with f1.5 and f1.8 from the f1.6 and f2.4 respectively on the 12 Max. Lot of numbers, but if you're not quite sure, I'll try and break it down a little bit. This larger aperture allows for more light to pass through the lens, so better low light performance is often an advantage, and it helps to achieve that really nice shallow depth of field, sharp close-up focal points with that really nice cinematic blurry background. And whilst we're on all things flicks, there is also a new cinematic video mode, and it's pretty excellent. Similar to how still photos work in portrait mode, and similar to how Samsung have created live focus video on their latest phones, it allows you to shoot video clips that have that really nice blurred bokeh effect in the background, and you can actually edit the focus and the amount of blur even after the video has been snapped. So if you wanted to pull focus, for example, from one person to another, you can, which is really pretty cool. And it's just opening up more of a chance for the everyday person to produce kind of a really nice professional looking video. 4K max resolution on both the rear and front cameras, and the iPhones have been probably one of, if not the best for video of any smartphone over the last couple of years, and I see this continuing with the 13 Pro Max. Unless Google have something to say about that with their Pixel 6 line. I'm very excited for that phone as well. The ultra-wide angle lens also allows you to take macro shots from as close as 2 centimeters away, and while I'm, as I've said on many videos, not a huge macro fan, I don't really use them, but if you do, this works really well. And all lenses are now capable of night mode also. In the short time that I've been testing it, you can get some really nice shots, although it's not necessarily groundbreaking technology here, and it's certainly competitive, but I wouldn't say it's necessarily the best smartphone I've ever used for a night mode. Stationary portrait shots and main lens photos on both the rear and front 12-megapixel selfie camera look great. Lovely sharp details, really nice dynamic range, and here are a few more examples of their performance. Now, for possibly the last 2 to 3 years have felt that iPhone photos by default tend to be a little bit on the warm side in terms of color temperature. I find them a little bit oversaturated, and often you get a kind of reddy orangey tinge on skin tones, and whites look a little bit kind of off-white, more kind of a creamy color. But in order to cater to personal preference here, Apple have actually introduced a pretty cool new feature where you can adapt the overall image from default to rich contrast, vibrant, warm and cool options, which kind of filters the image to personal preference and covers most of the basic choices here. Not a huge feature, but a nice addition. Ooh, friend! Now, one improvement that I do think is fairly substantial is the battery. You now have a 4,347 mAh cell, up from the 3,687 on the 12 Pro Max. And while that doesn't sound huge numbers-wise compared to some of the other flagships on the Android side, the battery I've experienced so far is nothing short of excellent. I've ran this phone ragged over the last few days, and the battery hasn't even broken a sweat. As an example, yesterday I had 97% at 8:30 in the morning, and by about 5:30 I was still on 59%. And I was watching YouTube videos, a little bit of gaming, using the camera, social media, so it wasn't just sat in my pocket. End of the day, since I've had it, easy around 30%. I mean, that's, for me, I never get to the end of the day with really anything. I'm really stretching for juice around 9-10 o'clock usually. This, honestly, pretty amazing. And the 2021 phone to beat, in my opinion, in this category. Whatever Apple have done in conjunction with the iOS software and the new A15 Bionic chip is truly impressive. The A15 Bionic that powers the new iPhones has 2 new high-performance cores, 4 new high-efficiency cores, and a faster neural engine, while there is also a new 5-core GPU for their most powerful graphics ever. The benchmarks are incredible, and gaming, for example, is a joy. Performance is also enhanced by the addition of the long-awaited ProMotion Super Retina XDR display. 1000 nits peak brightness, 25% higher than last year, but crucially, the display can go from 10Hz, 10 refreshes a second, to 120Hz, 120 refreshes a second, depending on what you're doing. So if you are scrolling, for example, the 120Hz makes everything feel really nice and smooth, but if you are viewing a photo, for example, and things are stationary, the refresh rate automatically drops to help save battery. Now, this high refresh rate has been a thing for at least the last couple of years on the Android side, so it's finally nice to see Apple joining the party. And a few companies have been quick to point that out, whether you agree with companies trolling each other or not. Spoiler alert, I don't. It just comes across as a little bit... whatever that noise was. Now, does the high refresh rate make navigating through iOS 15 night and day different from the 12 Pro that I have, which tops out at 60Hz? Well, no, not really, but it is certainly better, it is slicker, and I definitely would prefer to have it than not. And there are also some really nice additions to iOS 15 itself, which is also good to see. New FaceTime features for those of you looking to embrace this new online video conference world that we now live in. And live text is really helpful, pressing and holding for more options on text in images. And I love the new focus feature in your quick settings. It allows you to customize which notifications alert you based on what type of app they're coming from. And you have work, personal, do not disturb, etc. Really helpful. I also think moving the search bar to the bottom on Safari makes far more sense, especially on such a big phone. And yes, I am in the camp that thinks that the iPhone 13 Pro Max or any of the Pro Maxes that they've made is too large, certainly from a width point of view, for mainly one-handed use. And for the love of anything, please Apple, allow us to go back by swiping in from the right. Especially if you're right-handed, it makes far more sense than having to reach right across to the left-hand side to go back. I mean, come on. I'm not hugely critical often, but that is something that has bugged me for quite a long time on iPhones. Speakers are brilliant as always. The MacBook Pros and iPhones, etc. have been great when it comes to sound over the last few years. No difference here. And you have the fairly standard other specs of IP68 water and dust resistant rating, 6GB of RAM, but you do now have up to 1TB of storage, which is lovely to see. But it's pretty pricey at a whopping $15,499 for that model. The entry-level 13 Pro Max, which comes with 1 to 8GB of storage, starts from $10,499. Still not cheap, but based on other flagship phones out there at this moment in time, I don't feel now Apple are as expensive as they once felt. And that's mainly due to the fact that other companies have raised their prices, the likes of Samsung, Huawei, etc. I think my sort of last leaving words about the 13 Pro Max would be, if you have the 12 Pro Max, for example, unless battery is hugely important to you, and it is for a lot of people, but unless that's the case, or unless you have to have the high refresh rate, the new display, and you have to have the very latest and best from Apple, I think maybe you might want to possibly leave this year and maybe look to upgrade next year. It definitely feels incremental. I know we always say this, but it definitely feels quite incremental indeed. More of a 12S really than necessarily a whole jump to a new number. I know they don't really do that anymore, but that would be the case if it were. But I think if you have anything from the 11 series back, then you will absolutely love what they've done here with this 13 Pro Max. Let me know what you think in the comments. Is it worth the money? If you are going to get one or have got one, which one are you going to go? Have you got? And also, are you team iPhone or are you team Android? Love to hear your thoughts as always. Like and share if you enjoyed the video. Subscribe if you want to see my iPhone 13 standard video coming very, very soon. Sub for that. I've already said sub. Don't double sub because that would be unsub. Like the video if you enjoyed it. I love you and leave you. I'll see you in the next one. ASBYT. Peace out.
Do just what you want.